All right, you guys. In this week's episode of the podcast, I'm going to be talking about simple things that you can add and take away in your diet and your nourishment to make it feel a little bit more inviting. I talk about the wild, wild west of the wellness industry and how it is even overwhelming for me. And I give you some tips and tricks that you can add in to simplify and hopefully encourage you to feel a little bit less overwhelmed in your relationship with your diet and nourishment. So head on over to today's video and we'll start to break it down. Welcome back to the Art Yoga Wellness Podcast. All right, guys. So this week, I'm going to tackle a topic that I get questions about all the time, and I'm very open about why I shy away from it. But this week we're doing it. And what we're going to talk about this week is ways to simplify your diet, to feel better in your body, lose weight if that's just a direct result of the things we're going to talk about, and try to simplify some things for you. The reason I want to do this is I understand truly, and I mean this, you guys, I understand that it is the wild, wild west of information out there. It is overwhelming. I am someone who has a background in Western medicine. So I'm formally trained in Western medicine. I'm trained in Eastern medicine. I am a formally trained health coach who understands pretty deeply the way that human behavior works. And for me, someone who lives in this world professionally, personally, it is my passion. It's one of my main interests in life. It is hard for me to keep up. It is hard because as soon as I think I've got something figured out, some new research or information or theory or opinion comes out and it just blows your hair back. And so I understand truly those of you that are like, I want to have a better relationship with food. I want to figure this out, but I feel like I am drinking from a fire hose when it comes to information. And the reason you feel like that is because you are. So I wanted to just see if there was a way today that I could give you a few things to simplify it, to maybe decrease any overwhelm you might have, and also create a little bit of calm to where you feel informed and you feel prepared and you feel encouraged enough to try to take a few steps in the direction of positive change with what you're putting in your body. Because I do understand that it's a lot and it's overwhelming. And a lot of times when we feel constantly overwhelmed, it can just give us that decision paralysis to where we don't feel like we're equipped to make any changes. We start to not trust ourselves because there is so much information out there. And it's something that is really at times for me disheartening about the wellness world, the health and wellness world. I don't want to say just one or the other. I'm kind of going to group them together because something that is supposed to be helpful and empowering in a lot of different ways, I think has gotten so muddled and so messy and so oversaturated in a lot of different ways, mainly with people on the internet that have no idea what they're talking about. They'll do, some fad for a very short amount of time, and then it becomes the wellness gospel. And so there's just so much of it floating around out there. Another thing that makes it tricky is nutrition and diet it's not the easiest thing to do research on. It's pretty hard to do a controlled study on for various reasons. And so a lot of times the data that we have is not always, I don't want to say accurate, but it doesn't always go as wide and deep as we need it to. And everyone is so different. What I can eat compared to what somebody that has an array of food allergies. I don't have any food allergies. That's why I gave that example, is going to be very different. What I was able to function on and feel really, really good in my body and my energy and cognitively, and when I was 25 is very, very different. Now I'm 37. My hormones are different. My age is different. So many things about me and how my body runs and functions has shifted. Therefore, what used to work didn't. And so that's another thing that I understand can be really challenging, is sometimes it takes years and years and years to get in a really good rhythm with your relationship with food, and also just figuring out what works and what doesn't. And as soon as you figure it out, something changes, or you've aged a bit, or your hormones have shifted, or your lifestyle has shifted, and it no longer works in the way it did. And so you're like, well, now it's time to change again. I feel like I just got into a rhythm and a flow here. And so today I'm going to bring up just a few points for you to think about. As always, let me say this first. As always, I am not your primary care provider. This is not medical advice. This is not prescriptive. This is just a conversation with a few ideas to get your wheels turning, to give you a little bit of encouragement to then maybe do a deeper dive into your own life. Always consult your primary care provider. If there's a licensed dietitian that you need to work with, whoever your primary care provider is, if it's a health coach, but whatever support you need to seek out to make sure that this is something that adds value and supports you in your health and wellness, you definitely don't want to be self-diagnosing, especially if you have a medical condition. This is very, very general, all the things that I'm talking about. This is not directed or to help treat anything by any means. Another thing that I want to say is the reason that I don't do deep dives into conversations around specific diets or nourishment regimens in the podcast is because it needs to be customized. Everybody is so individual. Everybody's bio-individuality. There we go, is so different. And so what works for somebody might not work for you. And so it makes it really, really hard for me when I'm talking to however many hundreds of people every week, when I do the podcast, and then it's on different social media channels. There's no telling how many people hear it or see a clip of it. It's very general, and that's typically the opposite of what most people need. And so it makes it really difficult when I'm not in a one-on-one setting with clients, looking at their labs, looking at their history and physical, doing a deep dive into their lifestyle and all of the different things that they need individually. If I'm not doing that, it's really hard for me to say this is going to work or this is going to be good for you, because I really don't know who I'm talking to. So these are all general things that we're going to go over. Okay, that was the longest public service announcement ever. So I'll jump into the podcast now, or the actual information. So one thing that most diets that you will see out there, whether it is vegan, vegetarian, paleo, carnivore, all of kind of the main ones that you see out there now, are very different. They are very different. I'm not gonna try to debate that or deny that. They're very different. But they all have a few things in common that is a huge reason why people see such positive results, why they see inflammatory markers go down a lot of times, why they see weight loss, why they have an increase in energy, why they talk about having an increase in mental clarity, why they talk about having less dips in energy, so those highs and lows of energy levels, why a lot of their metabolic markers and their labs will look different. And when I say that, I mean your cholesterol, I mean your C-reactive protein, which is something that measures inflammatory markers in the body, your A1C, which is what it measures your sugar in the body over like a 3-month period. What are some other ones? Cholesterol, all of those markers, your metabolic panel are typically going to increase when people kind of stick to these things for a little bit. And when they're going from a traditional standard American diet to this, those are some commonalities that a lot of people will report, right? And again, all of those diets are very different. I mean, carnivore diet, people are living off of animal protein and animal fat, and then vegan, it's all plant-based with no animal products at all. So those are two very different diets. But the main commonality in all of these things, even if we're looking at the blue zones, the areas of the world where we have the largest population of people living past 100, is they're eating real food. They're not eating a diet that has a lot of processed sugar and a lot of processed packaged foods. And so in all of the clients that I work with and have worked with, so many times I have people and clients say, I just want you to tell me what to eat. I just want you to tell me what to eat. And there's not this magic pill. I've had clients that have come in before and I'm not shaming them. They're doing the best with the knowledge that they have up until that point, but they're going to do some company has got these shakes out and these bars. And if they just, supplement one meal a day with that shake and eat these bars, they're going to lose weight. And I'm like, this is not what we're doing, guys. The biggest thing that all of the people that are doing all of these different lifestyle diets and all of the things that we just talked about is they've completely eliminated, for the most part, processed sugar, alcohol, and processed food. That's the magic pill, is trying to limit these things. Okay. So instead of trying, and then from there, you can always go into more of an elimination diet, meaning if you're like, hey, but I'm still having dairy and it doesn't feel good, then you can play around with things. That's when you can start to customize things. If you're like, this is not sustainable, my energy levels are low, well, then let's look at protein. You can always customize these things. But again, I'm trying to link up the commonality in all of these for you. Okay. I'm trying to make it a little less overwhelming and look at what is the main thing that works for people in all of these different diets that they're doing. Okay. Another thing to simplify your relationship with food, if this is something that you've been wanting to talk about, you want to clean up your diet a little bit, you're wanting to feel better, you're wanting to have more energy, you're maybe wanting to lose a little bit of weight, you're maybe wanting your labs to improve or look a little bit better, we're going to talk about your sugar. Okay, so what are different areas throughout your day where you can look at your sugar intake? I've had clients before that have said, Kira, I really don't eat sugar. I mean, I'm not eating cupcakes. I'm not eating, sugar. It's not an issue. Well, then we'll look at their day, right? We'll look, and again, this is from kind of a health coaching lens. Well, you had some Dunkin' Donuts creamer. I don't know. I don't drink creamer. I do half and half in my coffee in the mornings, but whatever sugary creamer you're having, okay? Or maybe you stop and you have a Starbucks in the morning and it's got however much sugar and pumps of whatever in it. Okay, so that's sugar. It might not be a cupcake, but that's some sugar. And then maybe you have one Coke a day, or maybe you have a large sweet tea, or the sports drinks. Please stop. We don't need those. The Gatorades. So people will say, well, I'm not eating that much sugar. And then I'll look at what they're drinking in a day. So they are getting water, but they've also got maybe 5 sugary drinks in a day. They've got their 2 cups of coffee that have got whatever creamer in it that's a sugar bomb. Then they have, something at lunch. Maybe it's a sweet tea or a lemonade, or they have their Coke. Okay, now we're up to 3. And then maybe they go home and they have like a couple glasses of wine. That's a lot of sugar. Okay. Then we look at, well, and then I also had, this in this. I had that protein bar. Well, the protein bar maybe had 26 grams of sugar in it. So a lot of times we don't think that we're taking in a lot of sugar, and we are. It's sneaky. It's in everything. Or somebody will say, well, I had yogurt. If you look at some of the yogurts, if you look at the back of it, you guys, it has as much sugar as ice cream. So sugar is in a lot of different things that you might not think of as a treat or sweets. Just because you're not pounding cake every day or having a donut for breakfast doesn't mean that you're not taking in more sugar than you think. So that's somewhere that we can think from, just how can I simplify? How can I take a couple of things out that maybe have things in it that I didn't realize? That's one thing. Okay. So looking at different areas in your diet that maybe have sugar in it that you didn't cognitively categorize as a treat or something sugary. Okay. Another thing that I mentioned is processed food. So processed food, and a way that you can simplify this, guys, is if it's not going to go bad in your fridge, it's processed. We have a thing in our house where I try to encourage my children, and hear my words, guys. I've got a teenager in the house. I've got a 10-year-old. We live a busy lifestyle. We are running the streets right now with sports and school and activities and social stuff. So I'm a real human being, guys. Okay. So I get it. Like, we have packaged food in our house. But one thing that I try to remind my family is, if you're home, eat out of the fridge. The packaged stuff is to take with you. The packaged stuff is when you're on the run and you need a snack at school, or you need to take something with you to practice, or you need that's how we're going to use that stuff. When you're at home, I want you to go in the fridge and I want you to prepare something for yourself, or I want you to eat something that's fresh. Okay. These are not things that we're living off of in the household. So I understand the practicality of packaged foods, guys. I get it, but that's just not what we want to live off of. Okay. So if you're somebody who's like, yeah, but what exactly are you categorizing as processed food, Kira? I'm talking about, if it's not going to rot in your fridge or go bad in a pretty short span of time, then it's processed. Another thing is, just look at the back of your food. That's something that a lot of us don't know how to do. We look at the package and it says it has protein. It says it's all natural, done and done. Just look at the back of your food. Look at the protein in it. Look at the carbs in it. Look at the sugar in it. And just start to kind of educate yourself there. Okay. So that's another place, is think about your processed food. Everything you're eating, when you look at your meals, the majority of it, guys, needs to be non-processed. Okay. Is it fresh? Would it go bad if we didn't eat it in a certain amount of time? Okay. Another thing, so we went over drinks. We went over kind of sugary, sneaky areas where sugar sneaks in that we might not think about. We just talked about processed food. Okay. Another thing that I want to bring up is eating with your circadian rhythm. Another big trend and big thing that I've seen going on and kind of everywhere is fasting and, not eating at certain times. And I am here to say that your body does need a break. Your body, and I've talked about this in other podcasts, you definitely need to have pretty long windows where you don't eat. Okay. However, if you stop eating after dinner and you don't eat till the next day, you're going to get those hours. I mean, you're going to get, if you cut your food off at 7 and you don't eat breakfast until 7 or 8, you're getting 12 to 13 hours of no intake. Okay. That's going to allow for that sweeping of the gut that I talk about. Okay. It's going to allow for digestion. Okay. It's going to allow for your body to rest. You're not going to have to exert a bunch of energy to break down food, to metabolize it, to send all the different nutrients throughout the body where it needs to go. So if you're somebody who's like, well, I'm hearing everybody say I need to fast, not everybody needs to be fasting. There are certain ages of women that do not need to be fasting. If you're nursing, you don't need to be fasting. There are certain times and windows with hormones that you don't need to be fasting. Everybody's day and workout times look different. And so if fasting works for you, that's great. If you feel like you're thriving, but don't just start fasting because you heard somebody else say they're doing it. Okay. If a 24-year-old guy is thriving on fasting, it does not mean that me at 37 needs to be doing what he's doing. Okay. However, again, my goal in this podcast episode is to simplify things for you. One way that you can think about when to eat and when not to eat is try to sync it up with your circadian rhythm. Try to sync it up with the natural order of the world. So when it's light outside, that's kind of when my day starts. Okay. For me personally, I always drink a bunch of water. I do a mason jar of water before I do coffee. I do 2 cups of coffee after that on an empty stomach. Not saying to do this. This is just what I like to do. And then I've started a lot of mornings I eat breakfast now. And the reason I do that is I notice that for me in my schedule, a lot of it has to do with my schedule, that fasting felt fine in my physical body, energy wise, but cognitively, I did not feel great. I have to think pretty fast. I see a lot of clients back to back, especially on the days that I see yoga therapy clients. And so they'll come in and they say, this is what I have going on. And just because I have their chart and just because I know all of their things, right? I'm up to date on x-rays. I know all of their doctor's visits. If I need to, I've been in conversation with their other, healthcare providers. But if somebody walks in and they're like, this and this and this hurts today, or this and this is sticky, I need to be able to really, really quickly think about their body. I need to look at their anatomy. I need to be able to evaluate the way they're moving. I need to be able to look at points of tension in their body, facial grimacing. Did they tighten their jaw? Did their eyes squint when they moved this way? I have to be able to think fast. And the same way when I'm doing health coaching evaluations, when I'm doing health coaching sessions, I have to actively listen and implement different communication tools intentionally as we go along in the conversation to support my client. It takes a lot of mental energy and I have to be able to think quickly. And what I was noticing is when I was fasting until 12 or 1, my body felt fine. It wasn't that I was having severe hunger pains or anything like that. It's cognitively, I felt very slow. I didn't feel as alert. Some of my decision making felt a little bit slower. And so one thing I realized is fasting doesn't work for me on certain days. A little bit of breakfast and food, even though I don't crave it, I don't wake up hungry, allows me to cognitively perform better and feel better. Okay. So when we talk about eating in kind of the normal window of daytime and nighttime, one good rule of thumb is when the sun goes down, stop eating. Now, I understand that it's been getting dark at like 4:30. Okay. So we're eating an earlier dinner, but I'm not eating past 7 o'clock. I want to cut my food off in plenty of time for my digestion to happen. I don't want to go to bed full. I don't want my body to have to do that and worry about all the things it needs to be doing while my body's sleeping, okay? While it's recovering from the day, it doesn't need to have to do that, okay? And so I can get that fasting window if I just don't eat up until I go to bed at night, okay? So again, just simplifying it. Once you get all of these more simple things down, then you can always modify further from there. But what I see so many people doing is they want to completely, turn their life upside down overnight and implement all of these extreme things. And then they're not able to sustain it. And then they revert back to eating the sugar and eating whenever they want and eating an overly processed diet and just going through the drive-thru again because it's easy. you have to make sure that whatever you're doing is doable. And if it's so extreme abruptly that you can't do it and you can't do it long enough to see if your body's going to feel good or not, it's not going to work. So instead, my invitation for you would be to simplify first. Look at some of the commonalities in all of these things, that all of these different diets that seem to be working for people, and start there. Okay. Look at your sugar intake. See where it might be sneaking into your diet that you're not aware of. Simplify what you're eating. Okay. Eat real foods. Eat foods that will go bad in your fridge if you don't eat them. Okay. Use the packaged food and the processed foods for when you've got to take it with you. Okay. That's the thing where you're like, I'm on the run and I need this. Okay. And even when it comes to packaged foods, see if there's a way that you could improve the quality of food that's packaged. We have those chomp sticks in our house. We do a lot of like peanut butter and stuff on the go. We eat cheese on the go. So like cheese sticks and stuff, things like that. Okay. Again, is it processed? Yes. Is it packaged? Yes. But it's a little bit more nourishing than a bag of goldfish. Okay. So seeing where you can supplement some of the processed food. Then instead, again, of doing like these big long stretches of fasting, see if maybe you could just cut your food off earlier. Maybe don't eat on the couch at night. Maybe don't take food to bed with you and have one last like go of a snack while you're watching your show. See if you can, after your last meal, feel satisfied, feel comfortable, and then close the kitchen down. Okay. So these simplified ways of improving your relationship with food and improving your diet and nourishment without having to revert to these extremes that might not be sustainable. Another thing that you'll notice about a lot of the things that work for people is it's not a crash diet. It's not anything overly extreme unless it needs to be because of some sort of medical issue that's been diagnosed. Again, I understand that that's very different. We're talking in general terms here. But one of the commonalities is it's a lifestyle. They've made it to where they can do it in conjunction with living a life that they enjoy. Okay. These extreme diets that people do that don't work is the ones where people are so dang miserable on it. They resent it and they can't wait for it to be over. And also they don't feel like they can live a life that they enjoy and have that extreme diet. Okay. So you've got to figure out what can become a part of your lifestyle. Okay. What is something that you can do and still be in community with the people that you love, still go about your day-to-day things that you have to do, your job, caring for your family, maybe caring for yourself, and have this relationship with food in your diet that can coexist with those things in a way that's positive. Okay. So with that, guys, I will wrap up. Again, I fully understand that I did not have this secret to reveal. I didn't have like this one thing that I've been gatekeeping, like the secret diet that if you just do this, it's going to be easy and you're going to feel great and you'll never have to worry about your weight again. It can be simple, but I understand, you guys, it is not easy. People's relationships with food are deep and they're complex and they have so many layers to them. So if there were things about this conversation where you're like, that makes sense, that clicks, that resonates with me, but you still feel like implementing those things would be extremely challenging for you, that's when it's time for support. That's when you need to talk to a dietitian or health coach. You need somebody that has credentialing. It doesn't need to be just like an influencer online that's like, I did this for 6 weeks and it worked for me. It might have, but it doesn't mean that they know how to help you and customize something to where it's going to work for you. Okay. Look for people's credentialing. Make sure that they are formally educated in the thing that they're talking about, and definitely get support, because just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. And sometimes we just need somebody to walk alongside of us, to help us with accountability, to help us fill in the gaps of education that maybe we just don't know, to help give us that kickstart and that guidance so that once we get a little bit farther down the line, we feel like then we could implement it on our own. So there's absolutely no shame in asking for support and help in these areas because your health matters. It's the most important thing out there. I always say, like, I want to be healthy enough and not just live, but I want to be able to thrive so that I can be there for my kids, so that I can still do fun things with my friends, so that I can take trips and hike and physically be able to do things that align with my values and allow me to live a life that I'm going to be absolutely in love with. And your health is going to directly affect that. And it's something that it's never too late to start. It's never a bad time to pick the water over the sweet tea. It's never a bad time to reevaluate your relationship with your health and look for those tricky spots that maybe you've struggled with and finally go, you know what, today's the day that I'm going to send that email to that person who I feel like could help me with this, because you're worth it. So if you have any questions, as always, reach out to me. You can get a hold of me on our website, our social media channels. If you want to dive deeper into this conversation in a more personal way that's customized to you, we have a lot of different ways that we can support you in art, yoga, and wellness, a lot of different programs and ways you can work with me. And I hope that this conversation felt inviting. It felt broad enough to where you could see how it could be helpful and maybe implemented into your own life. I hope that it in no way felt dogmatic, and I hope it felt supportive. So until next time, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.